Welcome to Driven, the Unscripted Success podcast, with your hosts, Mike Menino and Nariman Hamden, bringing you insights and stories on achieving personal, professional, and financial success.
Hi, everybody. This is Michael Menino, and welcome to Driven Unscripted Success podcast. Today on the podcast, we're interviewing professionals who share their experience with you, the audience, and how they got to where they're at today, and zooming from the beautiful island of Venice Beach, Florida, Venice, Florida, not Venice Beach, Florida. Dr. Will Horton. Hey, doctor.
Hey, how are you doing?
Great. Yourself? Thanks for being on the podcast. Do appreciate it. If you could do everybody a favor and just introduce yourself and give a brief rundown of your experiences being in the Army, an actor, and a psychologist. I don't know how those three interact ever.
Okay. I'd love to, yeah. Like you said, I'm Will Horton. I currently live in Venice, Florida, not far from the beach, but been down here 30 years. Was originally born and raised Gary, Indiana, and Mississippi. It's a weird combination, but bounced between the two. And what led me to the things that I'm doing is after high school, I joined the Army because I wanted to be a pilot. It was doing quite well. Right. And then two things happened. One was just Vietnam War ended. And so they didn't need helicopter pilots like they needed before. So I kind of had to drift around the Army for a couple years. And my addiction kicked in. Drinking is my addiction of choice. And so I got in a little bit of trouble, but finished my time in the Army, got out after getting injured, and decided I was going to be an actor. And I wanted to go to this acting school and learn how to act, American Academy of Dramatic Arts or Juilliard, right? And even though I'd never seen a play, when I was in high school, all I did was drink beer and play football because I figured I was going in the military, it didn't matter. And so I auditioned for the schools, and I ended up getting accepted, but it was kind of weird because the one told me it wasn't because you got any talent, It was because we needed some veterans. So I was kind of like an affirmative action kid, And they go, we could teach you how to act.
Awesome.
Yeah, we could teach you how to, because they asked one question when I was auditioning. And they go, well, you don't have any experience. Why do you want to do it? And why are you applying to like Juilliard, the Goodman, and the Academy? And I said, well, I figured they're the best. And why not try? Because if you say no, I'll keep going down the list. Somebody will probably let me in. It's like when I got a Horton Ranger school. So I figured if I'm going to stay in the Army, I'm going to become a Ranger. And worst that can happen is it doesn't work. So that attitude got me in the door, just give it a shot. And I was doing pretty well in acting. And then again, the addiction kicked in and kind of took that career away. So then what happened and what led me to do this now is I started doing some work at rehab centers and detox, because I figured I was spending so much time there, I might as well get a job. And so I started hanging around, and, it's like, that's why most people I know that are therapists, psychologists, social workers, alcohol, they have a long-term plan. And in that part of my life, it was just one thing led to another. And I kept doing it. And then I learned hypnosis and NLP when NLP was new. And so that just kind of led one thing to another. I still acted in theater for many years. And then a few years ago, I got back into, because a personal coach of mine said, Will, you help people live out their dreams, right? I said, yeah, that's what I try to do. He goes, but you always said you wanted to do film and you're not trying film. So I thought you were the kind of guy that walks the walk.
Right.
And I went,
Ooh, that's a good one.
I went, son of a bitch. God damn it. He called me out, right?
He did. Got you hard, too.
So I learned, I went back and had to get, I had to learn how to act on camera. It's a lot different than on stage, as you know. Mm-hmm. And so I've been doing that. So that's kind of how they go together. I still do, I teach groups at a rehabs a couple of days a week. I do some private practice where, but I mostly coaching with the NLP and the hypnosis. And I do trainings. And then my acting on the next month, I go to Burbank, California, if the place doesn't burn down before then, and work on a film. playing an FBI agent this time, not a serial killer. This was from a movie where I played a serial killer.
Yeah, you play diverse roles, man. I think I'd be only good at one. I'm probably a method actor, so I'm really good at being who I am, just intense. And I think that does well on screen, and people seem to enjoy it. But I can't switch. I can't do what you do. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It really is awesome. In what you do, in everything in what you do, let's say the clinical psychologist and the act, there's a lot of competition. What sets you apart? What do you do better than most?
Well, I think the diversity of the background. Because like I said,
Gotcha.
people I know that one person were a great psychologist,
Agreed.
but he has a different worldview. I mean, one of my mentors in that world said, he was a World War II guy, but he said, someone asked, what's wrong with psychology and psychiatry? It used to be that, people looked up to that profession, right? Especially psychiatry and in psychology. And in the medical side, psychiatry is the lowest rung on the ladder, right?
I thought it was chiropractic.
Well, chiropractic, but it's like in the medical world. And he said this, and I never forget it. He goes, here's what happens. He goes, after World War II, a lot of the vets came back, or the women that stayed home, not to be sexist, but the people that stayed home, it was a different world. You had a lot of challenges, struggles, you worked through it. And then when you got into school, you had some life experience to bring to it, whether it was the military and combat, whether it was this. So you have a different worldview. And he goes, so what happens now if you want to be a psychologist? He goes, or a psychiatrist. First, you got to get straight A's in high school, so you get a good college. Then you've got to get A's or maintain a great average in college so you can get a graduate school. You're not done yet. Now you keep doing that to get in the good doctorate program. And then you do the same thing to get into a residency or an internship. And he goes, so what have you got? He goes, you got 26, 27-year-old women who's never been in a relationship with a man. You got 27-year-old men that are terrified of women, and they're going to hang out a shingle.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, the people in the room, it was at a psych conference, got upset. And I'm like, that makes sense. Because I come in, the more world, that's why like personal coaching seems more effective than a lot of the therapy. Because usually the people that get into it have life experience, and if they get the clinical skills on top of that, it's a different worldview. So I come into this, and then I learned hypnosis and NLP, and was blessed to go to the FBI Academy and take a hostage negotiation and a profiling course. And so that's just different worldviews that I brought into it. So
you round up real well.
Yeah.
That's good. It's called wisdom, and I've noticed that's very lacking in this world right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the compliment, but don't say that to my wife. She'll correct you.
Well, you got it now. I don't know what happened to you before you got it, so there's always that. If someone listening now wants to get better at what you do, what would you say would be their main suggestion, and what tips would you give them?
Well, it would probably be learn how people truly think in real time. Not the theory, but what's going on, and that's one reason I fell in love with NLP. And even could I stop you for a second? Sure.
I know what NLP is. Maybe not anybody in the audience. Could you describe NLP and what it means and what it does?
Yeah. Well, NLP is like neuro-linguistic programming or neuro-linguistic psychology. And it's how you think, not why. Right? A lot of psychology gets into like why you do what you do, whether it's trauma, it's this, that. Well, NLP kind of looks at like, okay, how are you doing this? What's going on in your head? Good example I always say is, and you have a part of your brain called your reticular activating system. And it's the part of you that's scanning the world, right? And people that don't know it, it's what separated us and kept us alive. The part of you that, when you would walk out of the cave and there was a saber-toothed tiger walking toward you this way and a beautiful flower or even a beautiful woman on this side, unless you could notice that tiger, it didn't matter about the beautiful flowers or the woman, right? Because you died. So your brain is always looking for things, mainly for threats, right?
Yeah,
So
I explain it this, I practice martial arts and I try to install fear into my opponents, right? Because I know for a fact the second you're afraid, you lose 20 IQ points, right? And that's the reticular activation system working inside your body to concentrate on one thing, but it tunnel visions you to whatever else is coming.
yeah, and then if you retrain it a little bit, it'll flip a little bit where I use the example, let's say you want a new car and you don't know what kind of car you want, you're shopping and you're looking at this one, then you go, oh, I want a BMW. Suddenly you'll see BMWs everywhere you look. The day before you wouldn't go, I didn't know my neighbor had a Beamer, right?
Yep.
But
Yep.
it opens up the scope of experience, right?
Yep.
And so
Yep.
that's the kind of thing. If you know that, what do you, if you're an entrepreneur, business person, salesperson,
Right.
therapist, what's really driving people?
Yeah.
So I would say the second thing to be successful is find people that are really good at what you want to do, and not just write a book. Because I heard a guy really rip into some of the financial guys. He goes, they weren't rich till they wrote a book on how to get rich.
The people that sell in the courses are making more money than on the courses than they are on the whatever they're talking about.
Yeah, and then if you find what they're doing, and that's why, I studied a lot with I got lucky, like I said, to go to the FBI Academy, studied how the CIA does things, because those guys are pretty good at what they do.
Oh yeah, they're the top. They're the upper echelon. One of my instructors in martial arts said he's going to quit. I'm like, why? He goes, I got into I think it was FBI or CIA or something. I'm like, well, then if you got in that, you got to go. That's it's a compliment to be asked, right?
Yeah.
So listen, Doc, what's one of the biggest challenges you had to overcome? I think I know this one, but I want to double check it. And how did you do it?
Well, probably the biggest challenge of all would be the addiction, right? The drinking. Because it was an issue I had that I couldn't outwork, I couldn't outthink, and I couldn't like manipulate my way through.
Out navigate it.
I was pretty good at those kind of things, right? And but the addiction, I had to kind of surrender to the process and do what I was told, and then my life started to change, right? And it kind of taught me. And then when I got in the NLP, it kind of made sense. Like in the 12-step model of recovery, which I love, not everybody does, but it gives you a step-by-step approach, right? And they're saying is, if you want what we have, you're willing to go to any length to get it and take these steps. And I'm like, and that just resonated. And that's the way I approach everything. If I want what you have, Mr. Michael, if I said, I want to, build a podcast, right? Well, I have to be willing to do what you did to do what you're doing. But in our culture now, I guess one of the big problems is the shortcuts. Right. I won't write the article. I'll have AI do it.
Right.
And so nothing wrong with AI. I like AI. It's helping me with my marketing big time. But it's like, so that was the biggest challenge, right?
Yeah. And do you find that overcoming your addiction makes it better, faster, and easier to explain it to other people and help them with their path?
Yeah, there's the camaraderie of a shared experience.
Yes.
You'll see it with like people in addictions, in recovery, the whole veterans movement, I'm not active because I don't drink, so I don't go to the American Legion of VFW like my dad always did. But it's like when I get around them, when I'm at the VA, because I have to go to the VA for my healthcare, and it's like there's a camaraderie there because we have a shared experience, and it doesn't have to be exact. Like you could have been in the Navy or the Air Force, I'm the Army or a Marine. It's like, but we've gone through a different gauntlet to get to where we're at. So there's that. I think it's important to find someone that's actually done what you want to do.
So I love coaching people, and I learned about addiction, and this one friend of mine was a heroin addict, And he said he hurt my brain when he talked. I've never been addicted. I don't have an addictive personality. I don't understand it at all. And I was trying to help a friend of mine that had two heroin addicted kids. And I said, what what's the what is the draw? What is the, I don't understand it. Help me understand it. And he goes, two things. One, for every addict, there's an enabler. And I go, okay, I didn't understand that part, but he showed me as years go by. And in that, he said, I want to help, and he goes, if you want to help a heroin addict and they're hanging from a bridge by their fingertips, he goes, step on their fingertips. They go, stop talking to me. That doesn't make any sense.
Does to me.
Yeah, but I don't, my experience was never that. But I understand you got to let them fall. When you smiled and laughed, I was like, you get it, and you got to let them fall and you got to let them hit rock bottom. And you got to be prepared to die. You got to prepare that person might possibly die because, they don't just, the fall could either heal you or kill you.
Yeah. And what's fascinating, with the things that we've not, like I said, I got into this in the early 80s. A lot of things they would talk about, this is how it works, whether it was psychology, Jung and, William James, all these.
Nietzsche and Socrates and all that.
Yeah, and all this. Okay, we kind of knew. Now we have the science that backs it up. Here's the analogy I use, right?
Okay,
if this is, good. I know this, I used to do martial arts, so I blew my Achilles tendons, right? But I know this is not how you make a fist, but if you can imagine, this is your fist, right?
Yeah.
This fist is your brain, right? This is your midbrain and going down into your spinal cord. The part of you that's only job is to keep you alive, safe, secure, fed, happy, watered, and programmed. Right? So that's down here. And once, that's always running, right? The thing that folds over the top is your conscious mind, your prefrontal cortex. But what happens with addiction is it resets your amygdala and your subconscious mind because of the dopamine. Now the current thought is you're not addicted to heroin or alcohol or marijuana or gambling. You're addicted to the dopamine rush it gives.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
and so what
that's
happens,
true.
Yeah, and so what happens down here, rather than, keep you, fight or flight, safety, security, food, and procreation, suddenly something moves into the number one spot, which is the addiction. So if you don't, and once that gets activated, your conscious mind goes out of the way, or your prefrontal cortex. It's like when you get really angry, people talk about, they flipped their lid. They went right to fight or flight. They either want to kick your ass or they want to run away, right?
Right.
And so what we have to do is get people to come back, but it takes a while for this part of your brain to reset this, right? So like now it would be like my case would be alcohol, then safety, security, all the other things. And it also makes sense, if that's the truth, why people would, they don't eat, they don't drink, they go into dangerous situations, and that, right? And so it has to, you have to reset this part of your brain so your prefrontal cortex can come back online. So that's the way I look at addictions, and that's in the neuro. Because what can happen, I love this. Got to tell you. Is
go for it.
Is if I took you, let's say you drink a little bit, and it's no big deal. Doesn't mean you don't get, but it's not a problem. So if we put you in an MRI and say, think about your favorite drink, whatever it is, a martini, a beer, whatever. What's going to happen in that MRI?
Frozen margarita.
Okay, frozen. Your prefrontal cortex is going to light up, and you're going to think, "Ooh, wouldn't that be good?" But then your prefrontal cortex is still working. You go, I got 2 more podcasts to do. Kids got a soccer game, whatever the hell's going on. My wife wants to do something. I'll get one later. So you can make a conscious choice. You put an alcoholic in that chair and say, think about your favorite drink. And if it was frozen margarita, suddenly what happens? Their prefrontal cortex goes offline.
Really?
It activates this part of your brain that feels like it needs it, right? And that's the phenomenon of craving. It's not that you want to drink, it's that that's what dope sick is, that drug addicts talk about. Even though intellectually they know they're not going to die from heroin withdrawal or meth, they're painful, but you don't die from it. In fact, the most dangerous drug to withdraw from is alcohol. But
really,
yeah, but So it's, so that's the difference, it's like the people and this is why the disconnect, most people could take it or leave it. They don't understand those that like, what do you mean you can't not drink? What do you mean you can't not shoot up? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I can't, just like I can't.
Yeah. Once that craving kicks in, it's like, it's that feeling, if I don't get this, I'm going to die.
Right. And like you said, it's a dopamine hit.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like things are going pretty good for you. You got a lot of stuff going on, man. You got acting, you got psychology, you got drug addiction recovery. I mean, you got a lot. Looking forward to the future. Have you ever tried creating passive income? And do you have any tips and tricks on that for the listeners?
It took me a while to finally get into it, to be honest with you. In fact, I was I was doing an NLP training at a hypnosis center. A guy had a hypnosis center with all these hypnotists. And he was the first guy to sell home study hypnosis courses, right?
Nice.
VHS videos, right? That's
a minute ago.
Yeah. And he goes, well, when we're doing this training, let's videotape it and we'll sell it. He goes, I'll sell it, give you half, and I'll just get it. It'll be your product. You can go make your own copies and you could sell it. And I'm like, I don't know. And I remember he looked at me and goes, you're leaving money on the table, son, money on the table. So we recorded it. And he goes, but if you do this, be prepared for all the old timers to push back. Because when he started doing hypnosis, all the hypnosis. Yeah. So I started selling home study NLP. Oh, I got it from like Bandler, Grinder, Dilt, all these people like, you can't do that. And I'm like, no, I can do it. Maybe you can't, but and so that's, to this day, I sell some of those courses and do that. And then that led to doing, and now every course I do, I just did one on manifestation. I record it.
There you go.
Yeah. And then, that also led me into like, I'll take a class I do, I'll transcribe it, turn it into a format, get it edited so it's a book. And then I'll sell that through. So it's like, and I don't market them the way that I should. And that's always, because I'm like, I have ADD, squirrel. So I'm off to the next project. But
get a VA that doesn't have squirrelitis, and then have them do it for you.
Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, I do the passive income that way. I try to books, recordings, things like that, because I can only teach so many seminars. I can only do so many when I was really busy doing one-on-ones, it's time constraint,
Yeah. But now if you videotape and put it into a series, then you can help out many people.
Yeah.
Not everybody has his problems, but a lot of people are similar. And then you tape them all. And then if you've got the whole gambit of addictions and the subsets of them, then you can help out a lot more people.
Yeah.
So wrapping up on the interview, we got a few, wrapping up on the interview. What do you got planned? What's exciting? What's your next thing for the next 6 to 12 months?
I started teaching something I thought I'd never teach, which is about like, how like from the FBI and the CIA, behavior profiling and deception detection. I didn't have to make me sign a non-disclosure. I just never taught it because I thought, NLP, hypnosis are two of the most powerful things I've ever come across. And I met some of the best people in the world that study NLP and hypnosis. And I've also met some of the most narcissistic, evil people that learn that skill.
That learn that skill, exactly. Right? And it's either or. It's the best of the best or the worst of the worst in that.
And so it's like, my God, that if you understand behavior profiling and some of that stuff on top of it, it's like on steroids.
Right.
And I just never taught it. But then, with a lot of the changes, there's all kinds of courses on them. So I started looking at them, and I was at a conference, how it came up. This is how my life happens. They're like, weren't you at the FBI Academy? I said, yeah, right. Right before the attacks, right? So going 2000, 2001. And they go, why don't you teach it? And I go, I don't know. I just never did. They go, they gave me some courses that they took. I took them. I go, okay, I could, without duplicating what they do, I add my level. So I'm kind of excited. I've been teaching that lately, like behavior profiling, buying decision strategies, which that one's fascinating. That comes more out of the CIA, because if they can get you to flip on your country, or the FBI, if they can get you, if you're a mobster, and they can get you to flip on your family, how are they doing that? And it's how they profile you, and it's how they figure out what your buying decision is. Well, how do they get you to buy in? So
that's interesting, because I know a bunch of Italians. They were in the Mothers and the Fathers Association back in the day, and they're pretty close-lipped. That to get them to do that, you have to be a psychological warrior.
Oh yeah.
Got a quick question for you. This is going to be an interesting one, because you got a lot of life experience, got a lot of wisdom in there. So if you could go back to your 20s right now, knowing everything you know and all your experiences, what would you do differently, or what would you do the same?
That's a hard question to answer.
It is. That's why I did it.
Generally, the first answer would always be quit drinking sooner than I did.
Gotcha.
But the flip side to that is, if you're not ready, nothing's going to work.
Didn't think of that.
But
so
go ahead.
Your other life, you got a wife and kids?
My daughter's grown. My wife, yeah.
So those are the things you probably keep normal, or you'd keep, right? Because I don't know, you might not, if she's going to listen to the podcast and you say, no, I wish I would break the girl. I haven't had that yet on my podcast, but I'm sure I will.
Yeah, I didn't go. What's your biggest regret? She's in the other room.
Her. Let me know how that flies. Balloon.
So I think now, and I'm at the age, it's like, and the other thing I'd say is just do shit you love.
There you go.
So that would be, that would be the two. And jump on the opportunities, because like I was telling you before we started, it's like when podcasts were first taking off, a guy says, let's do a podcast. I know how to do it. And I'm like, I don't know. And now, he's got a podcast, probably got like, 18, 20 million downloads over the last, decade or so. And then I got called back in whenever they were first starting the TED Talks. And before it was TEDx, when it was the original TED Talk. And I was going to do it, and they were doing it in Atlanta, except it didn't fit my schedule. Looking back, it's like, get your head out of your ass.
One of the biggest mistakes you probably ever made.
Yeah, it didn't hurt Tony Robbins or Mel, what's her name, Mel Robbins.
Well, no, it didn't hurt anybody that's ever been on it. All right. I can't thank you enough for being on the interview today. We do appreciate your insights and tips and tricks. If anybody wants to contact you, get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Go to Horton Psychology, HortonPsychology.com, or also if you just Dr. Will Horton with two L's, DrWillHorton.com, and it comes to my one website where you can contact me, and there's some of the. In fact, one of my projects the next week is to put all my books on the website so people can buy them. But all the stuff I do is there.
Awesome. All right. If you guys would like to talk to a crazy guy that was in the Army, actor and psychologist, and just an all-around amazing individual, please contact Dr. Will Horton. Thank you for being on the podcast, and have a great day, sir.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Thanks for listening to Driven, the Unscripted Success podcast. Want to share your story? Apply to be a guest at drivensuccesspodcast.com/guest.